the Monday, July 8th, 2019 regular meeting of Peters Township Council to order. Mr. Lauer, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Merrill?
Present.
Mr. Steigel? Present. I've not heard from Mr. Furry. Mr. Kozer? Here. Mr. Berquist?
Here.
Mr. Ball?
Present.
Mr. Lewis will be absent tonight.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of June 24th, 2019.
Move to be approved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. 5-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is special reports. We have a big tennis match we'll all be watching tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Very early in the morning, yes.
But Allison Brisk was a Peters Township resident, and in fact, she began her tennis career at the Peters Township Tennis Center, and it's quite an accomplishment. She yesterday beat the #1 seed in Wilmington, so she's moving on to the quarterfinals. So.
Wonderful. Awesome. Wins 3 more matches, and we'll be honoring another winner. Shouldn't be that difficult, right? You got to win 3 more matches.
Yeah.
All right.
You don't get best Serena Williams.
You know. Next, we move on to the audience comments section of the meeting. This is the section of the meeting where any member of the audience can speak for up to 5 minutes on a non-agenda item. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to speak? Report, ma'am. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Maureen Jones. I reside at 849 East McMurray Road. And looking through the information for tonight's meeting, I was going through the docket. In particular, I was going through the Planning Commission notes, and I saw that besides all the current new developments that are going in Peters, that there's on their agenda is down in Venetia area. We have a 90-plus unit Westbury that seems to be approved and moving forward. But there's also going to be a 300-plus unit Venetia Hills that's also on their docket. With this amount of increase of housing units down in this area, has council given any thought to increasing fire protection for this area? It's probably the further southern part of the township.
Actually, we have.
And are you considering putting any additional?
We're actually looking at a couple of potential sites right now.
Some sites right now.
Okay. That was my major concern, was seeing with all the development that's going in, and we only currently have 2, am I correct in that? The 2 firehouses supporting the whole township. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience wish to speak?
Hi, Ann Shaner, 123 Robin Hood Lane, McMurray. First of all, I want to say I thought we had a nice community day. Okay. However, I did have people stopping by the booth, and I guess it was after they stopped at the Republican booth. Somebody was sending them down to our booth, but they were inquiring about the survey. Okay. Now, I guess they've seen this online or whatever. I'm not sure, but. So I'm inquiring about the survey because I promised these people about the pool survey, okay? And what they seemed to be upset about was that they're only surveying 500 people. Is this correct?
It's actually less than that. It's 300 people.
Well, that's even worse. My God, these people are going to be calling me up.
If I can answer. It's a scientific survey, so it's a scientific sample, and it is valid within plus or minus 5%. So that's a normal process for sampling and surveying. So,
do we know who they're surveying?
It'll be a random sample.
And how is their random sample being chosen? I work for studies at the University of Pittsburgh, so I know all about studies and I know all about scientific sampling and all that. So how are they picking their sample?
Well, the sample of Peters Township residents is going to be based upon a list that we provide them, because we have a list that has all residents as a result of billings that we do. For the areas outside of Peters Township, quite frankly, I can't answer that.
What do you mean billings that you do?
We do garbage billings. Everyone in Peters Township who's a resident of Peters Township is required to have garbage service, so we have a complete list of everyone. So the sampling from inside of Peters Township will be based upon that list.
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't think 300 people's enough to survey, okay? I really don't. And did you give them these names and they put them in a computer and they're letting a computer randomly select them?
We haven't gotten that far yet.
So they did not tell you how they will select the names?
They'll select them randomly, and however process they use will be.
It's a scientific process. These are people that do surveys.
This is not the
for a
only
living.
survey they've ever done.
Okay, so,
Well, I'm sorry, I don't think 300.
well, you're entitled to your
Yeah,
opinion.
you know.
It's actually going to be about 250 from Peters and 50 from other townships.
All right, well, I don't know. Well, people, if you're dissatisfied with that, you call him. Don't call me, okay? Because I don't like it. I don't think it's a good sample.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the audience who wishes to speak?
Hi, Julie Cantrell, 446 East McMurray Road. The only thing I wanted to ask tonight is if you guys had considered making that statement on the website that I've talked about. I know last time I had asked for it to be on the agenda, it wasn't. Brought it up. Hoping you guys are thinking about it and wanted to know if you had maybe had any thoughts, if we could get it on the agenda, maybe get it written up, and then you guys could see how it would look. Just really think that, like, by us not putting it on there, we're making a statement, and I know that's not the statement we're making or that we want to make. So I'd like to put that out there, just simply on the website, nice, easy for anybody to see.
Aside from having it under the policies that we have, they're saying put it more prominently.
So, like, when you click on the website, our website's pretty plain when you go on to, like, peterstownship.com. When you click on the About, it has, like, 3 different things. So, like, I actually was really surprised there wasn't a statement just about the township that, you know, like, highlighting some of the, like, a quick blurb highlighting, you know, we have this great Peters Woods Park, maybe highlighting some of our parks, but you know what I mean, just like a nice statement about the township. But then definitely, if we don't want to change anything with that, just right there with the About Peters Township page, having a statement saying that, you know, as a township, we don't discriminate.
Well, I know that it has historical information and some other information under the About section.
It is a big plan, since we like it, we can have it.
Working on that.
Are you able to put it up there?
I mean, we're going to be talking about language related to some of the other documents we have. Maybe we could look at migrating something over there once we finalize what we're going to do. Might be worth looking at.
I mean, if the statement is that we don't discriminate, I don't think that's a problem because we don't. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the audience who wishes to speak? Now, I note there's a young Boy Scout sitting there in the second row. Yeah. We make it a tradition whenever a scout shows up here, you have to come forward, tell us your name, and explain what you're doing here. Fortunately for you, Mr. Lewis is absent tonight.
Yeah.
He's the one that generally handles
You
the
picked the right
interrogation.
night.
So you picked the perfect night to be here. So just come forward, please, young man. Tell us your name, what troop you're from, and why you're here tonight.
My name is Jacob Simcoe, and I'm here.
Oh, we're wrong.
Hold on.
We spoke too soon. As if on cue.
Bob flew in from vacation just to,
No, I didn't, I just drove in from Detroit.
Let the record show Mr. Lewis is in the house.
Just in time to interrogate the Boy Scout.
You know his name?
He was just started. We walked in. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jacob Simcoe. I'm here to work on 3 different merit badges. I am here to work on citizenship in the community, and I am also here to work on 2 communications. I am also here to work on communications merit badge.
And which troop do you belong to, young man?
I am in Troop 1320.
Very good. Any further questions, Mr. Lewis?
I'm impressed with his, I'm going to call it a scarf because I'm ignorant enough to not know what.
The Necker Chief.
Okay, and it's different, so is there a reason for that?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
What scout level are you in?
I am a Star Scout.
And then how much further if you go to Eagle?
I have to complete Life and then Eagle.
Is that your plan?
Yes.
That's commendable.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very
Hope
much.
you enjoy yourself this evening.
I'm not powered up here.
Okay, let's move on to unfinished business, of which there is none. So we'll move on to new business. First item is an ordinance to authorize the incurring of non-electoral debt through the issuance of a general obligation bond in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed
don't have a drive in there.
$11,975,000.
So let me begin by telling you that as part of the process of issuing the bonds, Peters Township went to Standards & Poor's Financial Services, and they confirmed our AA+ rating. So to put that in perspective for you, that places Peters Township in the top 10% of municipalities in the state of Pennsylvania in terms of that financial rating. So what's in front of you tonight is an ordinance that, if approved, authorizes the sale of bonds. And while that amount, as we discussed at the last meeting, is in excess of the $10 million that we have committed to borrowing this year, the fact of the matter is that's what the issue will be, that will be issued. Tonight, Tim Friends is here and Jeff Mills is here. Tim is our financial advisor. Mr. Mills is our bond counsel, and they can go through this.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. Evening. Promise to keep it brief. I'll start and give you just a background as to where we are with the process, what the market conditions look like, and then I'll turn it over to Jeff, and he'll explain to you exactly what the documentation that you'll be approving is tonight. Just off the top, though, if I'm not mistaken, you all went through this with all of us in 2016. It's the same process. Nothing different in terms of what documentation there is, what the process is going to be, how the sale will be conducted, and all of those things. So that process is exactly the same as it has been. We'll go through this real quick. A note that, just to add on to what Paul said about the rating, first of all, I gave you a copy of the rating report from Standard & Poor's. If you have not seen it yet, it's a good read. I think it makes the township look accurately exceptional. I think it speaks also very highly of the management team as well. So good news all around in the rating report if you've not read it. It's the second highest rating there can be. One notch above AA+ is AAA. There's no AAA rated municipalities in the western half of the state. There are a few out in suburban Philadelphia, but that's it. So you're as high as you're the highest rated municipality amongst a couple others in western Pennsylvania.
Who's AAA rated?
Chester County, a couple of municipalities in Berks County and Montgomery County, just out the main line in Philly and out in the suburban areas. Schedule-wise, we're going to post all of our documentation tomorrow. We're going to price this and conduct our auction next Tuesday, and then we're going to close the transaction, and that's when you'll have your money on August 15th. Just a couple of real quick things on this to give you a sense as to where we are with the interest rates. This is a snapshot of both U.S. Treasury rates as well as municipal rates. Currently, last 6 months and less than a year ago. And you can see the progression as to how much better they've gotten over the past year and over the past 6 months. Just looking at in 10 years, that's the standard, what you kind of look at in the market. Where's a 10-year rate? Treasuries, we're 62 basis points lower than we were 6 months ago. We're 80 basis points lower than we were 12 months ago, so almost a full percentage point drop in the last 12 months. And the municipal rates are the same, about 58 basis points lower versus 6 months ago, 83 basis points lower than they were a year ago. So just like in 16, I think we're hitting the market at a very opportune time. If you've got to borrow money, it's always good to do when the rates are low. On the next page, Just a couple of things in the market that I think are going to help you in your sale. If you look at the words, the bullet points on the side, volume has been picking up because interest rates have been dropping, but volume throughout this year has been surprisingly extremely low, both nationwide and in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So there aren't a lot of bonds to be bought. Couple that with the amount of money that's coming in from investors, retail investors, into municipal funds is through the roof. 26 straight weeks of inflows into municipal funds by investors, over $50 billion in new additional investable money has come into the U.S. market over the last 6 months. That's the strongest 6-month start to a year for muni investment in the last 10 years. So not a lot of supply and a lot of demand. So that combination will give you a good result on your sale next week. That's what we expect anyway. The last couple of pages are just things that you've seen before. This is your outstanding debt service on page 4. Your three pieces, the 13 bonds, the bank loan that you have from 2016, and then that 2016 bond issue you see. And you see how your debt service is approximately $1.3 million a year, and then it drops down to about $650,000 per year. That's what your current debt service structure is. On page 5 is the projected debt service of your new transaction. We've structured it so that there will be no payment by the township in 2019, so it won't impact your current budget. Afterwards, this is just based on current market rates. We'll see where the final rates end up next week. You can see that it basically adds about $300,000 a year to your payment schedule. And you put those two pieces together, what you had before with what you're going to have now, and your debt service looks like it's going to go about $1.6 million per year, and then it drops down to about $1.1 million per year. Taking the final maturity of this transaction out to 2049, which is, as your bond counsel will tell you, is a completely fair and reasonable term for the type of assets you're going to be financing. Long-term assets, long-term financing makes sense. And then the last page is just a graphical representation of that. The gray being your existing payment schedule, the blue being your projected, estimated new payments, and then you add those two together for your payment schedule. So that's all I have for the bonds. I guess I'll turn it over to Jeff Mills, your bond counsel, unless you have questions for me. He can explain to you a little bit more about the ordinance that you're going to be passing and kind of why that number is a little bit bigger than what it's going to be. But again, to highlight what Paul said, regardless of the number that's getting passed, which is an administrative process that's required by the state, we will be selling no more than $10 million in bonds. It was just like we did the last time. I think in 2016, we passed a resolution of like 9.8 million, and we sold 7.5. Same process. Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council.
Mr. Mills.
So in front of you tonight is an ordinance for the incurring of non-electoral debt. This ordinance is drafted in accordance with what's called the Pennsylvania Local Government Unit Debt Act. The Debt Act governs any taxing body, counties, municipalities, school districts, on their ability to incur debt. So this, as in the past and as in all your bond issues and even bank loans, is a requirement that this document, along with other borrowing documents after they price the bonds on the 16th, will be filed with what's called the Department of Community Economic Development. They will hold it for 20 days. They'll stamp their approval that the state submitted it and approved it. And then at that point in time, we will close on the bonds on, what was it, August 15th. So tonight, the ordinance has been properly advertised. It has to be advertised in accordance with the Debt Act under a special notice. And after you pass it tonight, there'll be what's called a notice of enactment, which will also be published in the Observer Reporter on Wednesday. So if you have any other questions on specifics on it, I'd be happy to answer any.
I'll make a move that the motion that we adopt ordinance number 843, authorizing incurring of non-electoral debt through the issuance of general obligation bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $11,975,000.
Second.
The motion and the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is award of a professional services contract for the design of Phase 1 of Rolling Hills Park.
So the 2019 budget, the capital improvement program assumed that $418,000 would be assigned for the design of Phase 1, and the source of those funds will be the bond issue. While these funds have been programmed to be spent in 2020, it will probably, the award of this contract will no doubt require a budget amendment so that some of those costs can be covered in 2019. We accepted proposals from both Mack and Engineer and HRG, both who have unique knowledge of of the site. In reviewing the proposals and also having subsequent meetings with both firms, it was clear that both firms understood the scope of the work and were comfortable with the value that they had assigned to accomplishing those tasks. Mack and Engineers' proposal is for $340,478. The proposal from HRG was $597,500, or $257,000 more than the Mack proposals. We had very candid discussions with both engineering firms because of this discrepancy, and both firms expressed confidence in the number that they had provided us. It's the joint recommendation of Mr. Zamaitis and Ms. Harmel and myself that council award a contract for the design of Phase 1 of the Rolling Hills Park to Mack and Engineers in the amount of $340,478.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a clarifying question. Should we state this as a not to exceed number?
It's a lump sum contract. The only way that number changes is if there's a change in the scope of work.
But we've gone over the idea that they're supposed to know the space.
Well, that's true, except what they can't know is the unknowable. So, for instance, if we run into permitting problems on that site that no one can envision, there'll be a change in the scope of work and we'll be back. I don't envision that occurring, or we would have included it, but I can't tell you that for sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is award of a contract for the 2019.
Excuse me one second. I do want to add, I don't think we stressed enough how good the AA plus rated credit rating is.
Oh, it's...
And that it is all predicated on the fact that we've had great fiscal responsibility here at Peters Township for a long time. And so I just wanted to it's not easy getting a AA plus standalone credit rating.
It's not easy to hold on to it.
It's not easy. It's harder to hold on to it.
Yes.
So, and I do think that I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Next item is award of a contract for the 2019 storm sewer improvement project.
Okay, the 2019 budget includes an appropriation of $250,000 for storm sewer improvements. This in part includes the replacement of corrugated metal pipe. It also includes slip lining projects that will be bid later in the fall. We went out to bid for the project that replaced corrugated metal pipe. We had bids from 4 vendors. The low bid is from Don Polino Construction at $85,735. We've worked with this firm before, and they have done satisfactory work, and it's for that reason that's my recommendation we award a bid for the 2019 storm sewer project to Don Polino in the amount of $85,735.
Have broken down your mind what the proportion of slip line and the corrugated metal pipe is versus the slip line scope that we based on the
Yeah, I mean, we usually, just as an order of magnitude, we try to split the difference, go about 50/50, 50% corrugated metal replacement, 50% cured in place.
So this price isn't drastically affect your...
No, we have, there's 2 projects on the books here for the fall. One is Shady Lane, which will be a smaller project for slip lining, and then one is Robin Hood Drive. It's about 1,000 feet of corrugated metal pipe, and we think that those numbers, if you subtract this from the 250,000 that we have, you're looking at roughly 160, and I think that'll cover what we intend to do for the rest of the year.
That said, I will make a motion that we award bid for the 2019 source sewer improvement project, including construction of $95,000.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is award of a contract for the purchase of a leaf vacuum machine under the Pennsylvania Co-Stars program.
The 2019 budget includes an appropriation of $86,000 for the purchase of a leaf vacuum. Of this budgeted amount, $68,400, or 80% of that anticipated cost, is being reimbursed through a grant from the state of Pennsylvania. The Public Works Director went out and looked at 2 different pieces of apparatus that can be acquired under the Co-Stars program, and it's his recommendation, and I would concur with him, that a contract be awarded to Golden Equipment Company at a price of $87,150 for a Spartan Leaf Pro Plus vacuum. This slightly exceeds the budget, but it's not a substantial difference from the budgeted amount. And again, the vast majority of this money is coming from the state of Pennsylvania.
I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of a Spartan Leaf Pro Plus vacuum machine with a clean-out door from Golden Equipment at a cost of $1,500.
It's a serious-looking machine.
It is a serious-looking machine.
Second.
For the motion and the second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is approval for recording purposes of the Thomas Road subdivision plan as shown on drawings prepared by PBE LLC, dated June 27, 2019, for Ted Taylor III.
And I apologize that this drawing's kind of hard to see, but to illustrate what's happening, there are 2 parcels, and what's going to occur is that a small portion of that larger parcel is going to be incorporated into an existing parcel, and for the purposes of constructing a home. So,
Is that going to be part of the eventual subdivision, or is it totally separate?
so you're starting out with something that looks like this. These are 2 different parcels. And so this other parcel, you're adding that piece of property on. So you end up with 2 parcels.
So just to clarify, the road bisects the property?
Yes.
So it is still only one parcel, even though it looks like 2 because the road cuts it in?
Yeah, and that's not uncommon that you can have a piece of property that has a road running through the middle of it.
And do we know, is he going to develop them both for residential, or is he planning to make any kind of connection or anything?
Well, go ahead, Ed. No.
We saw a conceptual plan that shows residential development on both sides of the street.
And this is an area that has bigger acreage, am I correct? The minimum lot sizes are bigger?
Well, it's a low, half-acre zoning district, but it's in this conservation residential overlay. I can't recall if they're using the smaller.
It's not in front of us tonight, so we don't know
No,
what
it was
he's...
just a question, Mr. Berquist. I'm
It's
sorry, I don't
coming.
mean to delay things too much longer.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve for recording purposes the Thomas Road subdivision plan for Ted Taylor III, subject to the conditions set forth in the planning memorandum.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is resolution accepting the public improvements and dedicated easements as shown on the recorded Phase 3 Anthony Farm subdivision plan.
So you have a resolution in front of you tonight that accepts the public improvements, and that is the roadway and the storm sewers, as well as the easement in the open space. It does not reflect acceptance of the stormwater pond. These have all been inspected by Gateway Engineers, and it's Mr. Zemaitis' recommendation that they be accepted into the township's roadway system. So with that, it's my recommendation that council approve Resolution 7119, accepting the public improvements and dedicated easements.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is ordinance amending the Peters Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 24, Part 15, entitled Policy Against Discrimination.
So, as council is aware, the language in the administrative code and the language that's in the employee handbook are similar but not the same. And so what you see in front of you is the language that's been in the administrative code for many years. One of the things that I had mentioned before is that to some extent protected classes do change. And in recognition of that, when the handbook was done, it had language that was a bit more expansive and went on to say any other characteristics protected by applicable federal and state laws. So to the extent that what's deemed to be a protected class changes, the applicable federal and state laws would apply. So what I am proposing is, and it's contained in the ordinance, is to take the language from the handbook and attach it to the language that exists in the administrative code. The one difference is that in the administrative code right now, there is a statement that the township will not discriminate against individuals because of political opinions and affiliations. So that's included. That remains in the administrative code, and I think it's important that it be there. So.
I think that this makes sense, and standardizing it is something that I have supported. So I'll make a recommendation that council adopt Ordinance 844, amending the Peters Township Code of Ordinances, Chapter 44, Part 15, entitled Policy Against Discrimination, as Mr. Lauer has stated and demonstrated.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is special permit for Sun Chevrolet to erect a tent display in conjunction with a First Responders Appreciation Day event.
So this is the second annual First Responders Appreciation Day. It will be held on July 16th. They've had other tent sales there, and that really hasn't been an issue. I think the one thing that I would note at 1 p.m., the intention is to recognize Chief Goyle for his service to the community.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is resolution establishing a municipal census 2020 complete count committee.
So across Pennsylvania and Washington County, there are census committees formed. The principal function of those committees is to educate people as to the fact that the census is occurring and to encourage people to participate. It is important to the township from the standpoint that even funds that we receive from the state of Pennsylvania are often tied to our population numbers. And one of the reasons why over the years things like liquid fuels contributions to the township have gone up is that our population goes up. So it's important that anyone who's residing in Peters Township at the time of the census to participate. This is really an administrative function, so if you pass the resolution, what I suggested is that we mimic what we did in 2010, and there's a series of administrative employees whose function is to do education, and that we utilize those people on that committee.
Mr. Lauer was kind enough to answer a couple questions for me about this because I didn't really remember. how we determine that. And I did suggest that we possibly include someone from the school district, perhaps Ms. Belcher, who's their communication person. Were you going to reach out to them?
Yes, I was going to try to reach out to her to find out whether she could help us.
They have a pretty broad contact list. Is there a resolution number?
It would be Resolution 070219.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 070219, establishing the Census Committee for 2020.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Next item is payroll and bills.
Chairman, I've reviewed the payroll and bills, find them in order, and move that they be paid.
I'll second. The motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. There are two bills, one for banners and one for flags. And I'm not sure if they're the same thing or not. But we were talking, I had asked about whether we had a policy about, so people could look that up if they wanted to buy a banner. Are we going to be working on that?
Yes, we are going to create a policy with regard to
Okay,
that.
and are these two the same thing, or are they different things?
To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with what you're looking at, so I would have to take a look at that.
You know
I'll
that,
say-
Brian?
You know what I'm looking for right now. It's not on this sheet. It's on the.
It's on the summary of
Yeah.
bills.
Yeah.
One is 500 for flags, and the other is 1441 for banners.
They would be the same thing. One is a fee that we paid. We had an individual assist us in the design of the banners.
Oh, I see.
The other
Okay.
one is for the banners themselves.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. 6-0, Mr. Lauer. Anything under correspondence, Mr. Lauer?
No.
Does any member of council have any questions or comments regarding the various committee meeting minutes?
I had two comments. I'll make them quick. Peters Creek Sanitary Authority, the minutes, I was reviewing them and spoke with Mr. Steigel. He and I met with the members of Peters Creek Sanitary in the past just to kind of get an update. There's some things in the minutes that we'd like to talk about. If it's okay with the rest of council, we'll try to set up a meeting with that group, and perhaps we can do the recognition at the same time.
Pretty good.
Is that all right with the rest of council?
Anyone have any objection to that?
I don't.
Okay.
None.
The other thing I had a question about was Peters Township Sanitary. They had a comment about issues with the Brush Run Stonehenge Trunk Sewer Project with getting easements or something. Is
Yes,
that
they
going to be a
would-
problem for us?
It will be a problem if we can't get the easements. I think they're still working on that. I don't know that they've come to a complete impasse, but
Thank you.
Anyone else with any comments on the committee minutes?
I would ask when we would be discussing the canvassing certificate right now?
well, I was going to say I thought we'd do it under miscellaneous if people had
Okay.
questions. So.
No, miscellaneous is the next thing, so.
One of the things I sent out to everyone was a copy of the draft of the survey that's going to be used, and I'd asked people if they had questions or concerns, they email those back to me. Mr. Ball has done that. Mr. Lewis has done that. I will point out, Mr. Lewis, you were correct with regard to there's an age limit beyond which they were not going to ask questions, and I had explained to them that as a public agency, I'm not sure that made a lot of sense to us, that we should be asking everyone.
If you're 73 years old, you don't count.
Well, you do now. So.
On behalf of those that were over 74, I asked the same question.
Yes.
I was concerned. I really didn't think the person that drafted that had much of a background with aquatics or pools. And that concerned me.
In what regard?
Well, I think one question was, should we elaborate what a zero entry pool is? And I think anyone that...
Oh, no, they knew what that was. The problem was, and I had a discussion with them, they're not sure, and I would agree with them, that the general public would know what a zero depth pool is. And so a zero depth pool can also be defined as a beach entry pool. So their intention is to express that question both ways so that people understand what it is we're talking about.
Well, it is, in some respects, an ADA issue also.
Yes, yes.
Either that or you're going to have a lift
Yes.
in the facility.
And I commented on it that I wasn't the least bit happy with the questions on there. They make a presumption that there's only an outdoor pool. I don't think that's been resolved.
Similar comment from me.
Yeah, and I will get you the revision that has questions about the indoor pool.
And I also think that the way they went about asking some of the things was painful to read. I mean, they asked the same thing 35 times and never got to a conclusion. I mean, it was a poorly designed survey, in my opinion.
It's intended to be a telephone survey, and having participated in those phone surveys with them a number of times, what you see there is the way I experienced those surveys. So,
well, I still.
I thought the fee structure of questions was redundant and very confusing, actually.
I mean, I realize it's a telephone survey, but I don't know how you would ever ascertain an answer from a person answering those questions on the phone, because you can't remember or go back to what the previous questions were. You know, it was like, if the fee was, $25 to $75, would you do it on alternate Sundays? But if it was $50 to $65, would you do it here? And I mean, it's very difficult to follow, believe me.
I don't think it's quite as you characterize it, though, because there's one set of fees that they talk about for range of fees for families.
Yeah, it was confusing, and I'm used to reading those.
I will apologize. I haven't sent you mine. I have this marked up, but I didn't send them to you.
Okay.
But I thought that another question, I agree with what the gentleman said, and I think that it would also be interesting to me to know whether the people they're talking to actually have their own pool or whether they don't. And I do agree with some of the other comments that they've made about how the questions are worded. I think they do sound confusing to me. And if you're saying they're going to do this on the phone, are they going to be identified as Campos Research when it comes up? Because if they're identified as an unknown number.
Nobody's going to answer it.
Exactly. Exactly. Or maybe we need to announce when they're going to start doing this, that if you get a call that comes up Campos Research, it may be related to the pool. Because as I said, as Mr. Lewis is right, I don't think those numbers are.
Okay, well, let me find out if there's a way we can do this that eliminates that problem.
Well, and I'm going to come to closure with the issue that goes back like 20 years ago, that we had a survey and it became ambiguous as to what the conclusion of that survey was. And if we end up with another one, it's just going to aggravate the decision-making process. So you need to think through whether we're going to go ahead with an aquatic facility or not, and make sure the questions don't end up being ambiguous. And the nature of the ambiguity the last time was, well, we'd like to have a rec center and a pool, but don't raise my taxes.
Yes. And I think this survey is intended to ask a different question. The question it's intended to ask is, if there was a pool that was built, would you attend it? And at what price level would you be willing to pay so that you could ascertain whether or not you can generate the revenue necessary to operate the pool? I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't think you're right. That survey is not intended to ask, should we build a pool? It's to ask, if a pool is built, is this something that you would join so that we can ascertain whether or not it will generate?
I think you still need to start with, are you in favor of building a pool or are you not? Because if somebody is not in favor of it and still answers the rest of the questions, that kind of nullifies the validity of their answer.
Well, that question's on here, though.
What?
There is a question here that says, where is it at? Your opinion of a pool. Let's see where we are.
Yeah, that question is intended to
How
find out.
valuable do you feel the presence of an outdoor community aquatic center would be to Peters Township? And if you say not at all valuable, then they want you to skip a series of questions.
And that question is intended to get to something that we heard in the public hearing, where you had an individual who stood up and said, hey, given my family situation and my age, I will never use this pool. But I think a pool is an important asset for a community such as Peters Township to have. And I think that's what that question is trying to get to.
Well, maybe we should ask the question, if you are in favor of a pool, do you care who builds it? Whether it's a private entity or the township. We were going to have the Y building, so does it matter, which way?
And the Y is bankrupt, so.
Pardon me?
And the Y is
Well, I know
bankrupt.
The Y is bankrupt, but they weren't the only suitor on the table. But I'm just suggesting that.
I would like to see the updated draft, and I would encourage my other partners in crime here.
I will email you. I apologize. I'll send this to you.
Okay, the next item under miscellaneous is recycling audit.
Yes, I just wanted to let council know, as I think as the community knows at this point, there's some challenges with regard to recycling, and part of that is focused on the fact that glass is no longer a recycled material. The other thing is there's contaminants inside the recycling bins that causes it to be rejected at the recycling center, which results in it going to a landfill. So these types of tags are going to be placed on recycling bins throughout the township. They're going to randomly go through bins and see what is in there. And quite honestly, in talking to them, what they're finding, their two biggest problems are plastic bags, which are not recyclable at the curb. And the other is a lot of people still don't know that glass is not to be placed in their bin.
One of the things about the bags, apparently what people are doing to store, they have bags, they have collector, however they collect them. Recycling in a plastic bag, and then they pull the whole thing out and throw it in.
Yeah.
And they have to dump it.
They have to dump it.
And that's the trick.
Yes.
The glass, I don't know how to explain that since we've been talking about that for a while.
Are we making progress with our glass collection facility?
We're waiting for the Pennsylvania Resource Council. We were the first community to step to the plate and say we'll be willing to host one of these bins. They're out attempting to get others to follow suit, so hopefully before the summer's done.
Okay, so it's a matter of weeks or maybe even months before that.
I think it's
becomes-
a matter of
Thank you.
months at least.
Anything else under miscellaneous?
We did want to talk about group homes, but my preference would be that we could do that in an executive session because I think it may involve a legal matter. The other thing, I just wanted to let you know, I will not be here for the next council meeting.
Oh, no.
I will be at the World Scout Jamboree in Fayetteville, West Virginia.
My condolences.
I'll be there for 2 weeks working with in a sub-camp area which has about 2,500 scouts.
Mr. Simcoe, are you going to be there?
Dad didn't tell you were going?
I have one other question for miscellaneous. Back in May, you handed council a binder of policies, and I sent you back some comments about those. Were they going to, what's going to happen to those?
Right now, we're on the verge of being able to send you back a policy with regard to snow removal. It's the first one we've looked at to update. So.
Okay.
You also asked the question, someone asked the question last time, where we are with regard to the royalties on the gas well down at Peters Lake Park. That well, the fracking has been completed. They anticipate that royalties will be available in 3 to 5 months, which would be good timing for our budget. The other thing that I was asked today to bring to you is a request to waive a fee for the picnic shelters. The Lions intend to have their July, August, and September meetings as a picnic out in the park. The only thing I caution you on, again, is there is a standard rate for the use of the shelters, and the fee structure actually has a provision that allows not-for-profits to use it from 9 to 3 p.m. on weekdays only. This would be something in addition to that. And where I have complete sympathy for not-for-profits, the thing that I would suggest to you again is, if what they're requesting makes sense, then we need to change the fee structure so that, in fact,
What's the fee that
we're looking, they want to use the larger shelter, which is $80.
$80.
So you're talking for 3 days, so $240.
Yep.
But and I agree the money is de minimis when you look in the grand scheme of things, but it's a precedence. So the question is, do we
I just think that it would be a lot easier if we're doing this for the Lions, that we do it for the Boy Scouts, we do it for the Girl Scouts, we do it for the Rotary, we do it for anybody else, as opposed to, again, giving exceptions.
I don't disagree with granting
think we need to
more
be
broad-based
consistent.
variance.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, you just have to make it uniform. I don't think we can charge one nonprofit and then let another nonprofit use it for free.
Set a rate and that's it for everybody.
Maybe we set a nonprofit, we already have a nonprofit rate, right? Or is that just a?
Well, you can schedule as a nonprofit during daytime hours. You cannot, I believe this is actually on a Friday evening. This would be a time when normally we would be renting those shelters, so.
So maybe what we need to look into then is just establishing a different, if we're going to do that, establish a different rate for nonprofits as opposed to giving it to them for free.
And what we intend to do this fall is to bring you back a fee schedule, look at all of our fees, and we'll include this in that.
Do you have time before their first meeting for the park and
No,
rec?
because it's this Friday.
Oh, well, there you go.
They just came in today.
I see. Well, I don't know, I'd just leave it the same, or I'll charge them the nonprofit for the later time. But I don't know that we should give it to them gratis until we change our policy.
I agree with that.
I'm fine with it also.
Yeah, it just seems like we set these rates, and every time we set a rate, someone wants it for less.
Challenges, yeah.
And it was interesting. I was just up in Ann Arbor, played at their municipal golf course, which was rated number 1 in the country, like in 2010. And they only had one fee. It was like $45 for everyone. And I said, "What? You don't have a resident fee? You don't have a senior citizen fee?" "No, I'm over 65. And the guy said, "We used to have 10 fees, and they had a company come in to take a look at their operations, and they said, just go to one fee." And it just, he said, business has actually improved, because, it used to be, you'd have 5 guys come in and each guy had a different fee. So my point is to that, we set these fees for a good reason. Now, whether they're too high or too low, I can't answer, but it should be consistent.
Yes.
And avoid every time someone wants to do something, we have to make a decision whether or not we want to grant them a waiver.
Yeah.
And it's just time consuming for everybody,
Yes.
including our park and recs.
All right, anything else under miscellaneous?
Do we have a conclusion of this discussion? Because I don't have an idea what we just resolved.
I think at least what I understood, the consensus was
Well, when's their
not to
meeting?
waive it.
Friday.
They came in today to request a permit.
I think we should charge them the $80 nonprofit fee and let them do it for the evening, and then decide about how we're going to do it going forward.
Okay.
That's fine.
Anything else under miscellaneous? Anything any member of council wants to see on the next agenda?
No, I guess we don't have a Courtney update. It seems like we normally have. I saw, I think I see, where someone is in there tearing something down.
And again, I think this is in direct reaction to the fact that, once again, we've asked Mr. Courtney to move forward or have the building torn down. He has begun the demolition work, and so if you look at what he's doing, he's in the process of tearing out all of that what remains of that old building around which the block was laid, and so he's hauling that out right now, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. So,
Any update on Oakwood when this is going to be finished?
end of July.
No, but has Mr. Courtney filed with the planning? Has he had someone come in?
At the last meeting, he was expressing some confusion over
Right.
what was
How
left.
come no one else has confusion on all our other developments?
So I clarified in writing exactly what needs to be done to get his site plan approved, as well as get his building plans approved. He has that.
Okay. But what deadline are we under? Right.
Well, Mark and I talked about this. As long as that demolition work is occurring down there, we're not going to go out and get quotes because I don't know how to describe what it is we're demolishing.
It's a moving target.
I will tell you this, the work that he's doing has greatly reduced the cost of actually removing that building if that's where we end up. So,
Well, it's just like those soccer games that have the extra time, but you don't know how much it is.
Injury time.
25th last chance agreement.
Okay,
All right.
Anything any member of council wants to see on the next agenda?
Well, how did we fare out of some of these rainstorms? I know that I have found several roads that have some significant erosion or potholes that have evolved. And
Well, surprisingly, we haven't had major flooding and drainage calls after the storm events. I was kind of surprised to come in to work today and not have a full voicemail and email full, but
what we did have over the weekend, though, was a number of trees that had to be cleaned up. A number on the trail itself and a couple of crossroads.
Well, one road that has quite a bit of erosion on it is the downhill side of Robin Hood on the on the east side of it. There's some pretty big eroded parts of asphalt with some deep potholes in there. And I'm sure anybody walking on the street would have difficulty. And I know it's a road that we're talking about paving this year too, but
portion of it, yes.
if we ever get the water line resolved that's leaking at the top of the hill.
They've actually investigated it and said it's not their leak. It's not a leak. So we have to assume it's a spring at this point. So we're going to capture it and put it into our storm sewer system.
So that's not going to necessarily delay or impact any longer. How about on Center Church by Center Church? There's no sign of any activity yet, and I keep telling you that I think it's waiting on the utility pole to be relocated. But
no, they actually, they were supposed to turn the signs today and actually physically shut the road down. So you still won't see them up in the intersection for a couple of weeks. They're starting, they have a pretty good sized fill that they have to bring up to grade to get the intersection, on grade. So they'll be down on the site doing earthwork for probably the next 2 weeks until you actually see them up in the intersection.
It's like crying wolf, first
oh, yeah, it says June 16th, so.
Yeah, but the road will be closed as of today, whether or not they're on the road?
Correct.
And we're still confident it's going to be done in time for when school starts?
We're hoping, yes.
Because that
I
is
can't
a
do the
school
work
bus
for
route.
them. All I can do is yell at them.
Oh, there won't be any way in.
Okay, Mr. Lauer, in order to place the non-discrimination policy on the website, do we need an ordinance to that effect?
No.
So,
We'll craft language that's appropriate.
Okay. All right, and since this is the first meeting since Community Day, and I saw most of you at Community Day, it was a fun day, it was hot, but still fun, and kudos to Michelle and everyone at Parks and Rec for putting together a great event in spite of the heat. They do a wonderful job every year, and fortunately the rain held off until the fireworks. Fireworks still went off about a half hour late, which isn't the best thing when you have a 3-year-old who wants to see the fireworks, but they went off anyway. So it was a great day for everyone. Again, kudos to Parks and Rec for putting together a great community day this year.
And along the same vein, this is the first Wednesday concert this week. It's Velveeta. Right, Mr. Berquist?
Yep. Hey, first concert in the park this Wednesday, too.
Isn't that what I just said?
Yes.
He's a senior citizen now.
A selective hearing.
I'm sorry, I forgot you were 65, I should have said.
Anyone else having anything for the good of the order? All right, you enjoy your first council meeting? All right, welcome back anytime you want. Meeting adjourned.